So in GolfBox, just a little tip to all you GolfBox users: when you are away from your screen in the admin system, if you go to the tee time bookings, it will refresh every 5 minutes, and you will not be logged out after an hour. So just a little GolfBox tip: if you have tee time booking and you leave to do something else, or you work on other programs, your web page or your accounting or something else, just go to the tee time booking, and your system will not sign out after an hour. It will just keep refreshing every 5 minutes, and just a good to know thing in the everyday work. If you have other users than yourself that needs to have rights for the tournaments, you just assign rights for the tournament under the rights system. You find the player, and you select just the part down here that says tournament. This is the only thing they need to have. In the tournament system, once they have logged onto the tournament system, they will get a profile over there as well, and then you can differentiate on rights for each user that has rights in the tournament system. Maybe some users should not have access to the complete setup of everything in the tournament system, but you will have to do that in the tournament system. So what's it called in Icelandic? Mótaskrá. Mótaskrá. Get it. Good. Tournaments, much better. Click on the start, and it will open the tournament module. And the reason it doesn't open within the GolfBox the system is that it's a complete separate module that speaks together with the admin system. And we've done this to be able to sell it to people that does not have a golf club. Sell it to tournament organizers, tour organizers. We have a lot of third-level pro tours using the system. So it's easier when it's not completely embedded into the admin system. But they speak together seamlessly with something called an API. So everything from players going into the tournament system and from handicaps going back and everything, they speak together seamlessly. We're using Reykjavik, thank you for the help, Harper, because we have set up Borgen, so I can show you that as well in the system. And I will be on our test system for all of this, but when you get to use the system yourself, just use your normal license to do what you need to do. The first thing you see is an overview of the tournament system. You have at the top your competitions, your order of merits, and your slideshows. You have a settings area, and you have a help guide. This help thing is currently linked to the English version, but from tomorrow, Anna will start building guides in Icelandic, or slowly starting building guides in Icelandic, so it will be linked to the Icelandic help page from probably, maybe not exactly tomorrow, but when I get home. But there will be guides in Icelandic instead of English or Danish. And if you want to log out, you just click this one. If you want it in another language, and your language would be Icelandic when you come from your user, but if you want it in another language, you can click at the bottom. Good. So what I will go through today is how to set up a competition, how to basically run a whole tournament, set up the competition, enter players, and I will show you the 5 different ways that a player can be entered into a tournament, how to create start lists, how to enter scores on the 3 different ways we can enter scores, and show you how to use a slideshow for the TVs at the clubhouse while you're running a tournament. When you click on the competition, you will get into your overview of the competitions, and you can use the top here to have a little. This year it won't really matter, but next year you probably want to choose the different seasons, so you're just seeing the tournaments for the year and not all the tournaments, because if you're an active club, you may have 200 tournaments within a year, and you don't want to see 2 or 3 years at the same time, because that will be a little bit messy. You can also use something we call categories. It can be junior tournaments or senior tournaments or club tournaments or men's tournaments or whatever categories you will put on a tournament. You can filter on that as well, and you can filter on a date area. You want to say, I just want to see whatever tournaments I have in March. So you select March 1 and March 31st. There are 3 buttons over here. This one that looks like a funnel where the water comes into, or a water tower, is just a filter if you want to see something with the name men. You can put in the name, you can put in men, and it will just show you all the tournaments that has that in the name. The filter is not better than how you name your tournaments. So anything you put in here, it will try to filter. This one, I call it the ice cube area. It's really a column selector. This is where you can select which columns would you like to see for each tournament. Do you want to see the start date and the end date for the tournaments? Do you want to see whether they're open tournaments or not? And you can click them on and off. And this works not for the license, but for each user. So if you have your own login, you can choose whatever you prefer, and it will be only be you that sees that. And you can of course sort on the different columns if you want to do that. It's easiest normally just to have it on the date, so you have the oldest first, because then you know your dates and what dates you have your tournaments. But sometimes you want to sort it in some other ways. You can also, if there's something you want to have it in another order, you can drag the columns around, and again, it's just for you as the user, and can be just the way you like it. The last one is just an export file. You can export the list, and this is just the list here to CSV, or you can print it or get it in Excel. And these 3 buttons, they will appear everywhere we have lists. So on a player list, you'll have the same 3 buttons, and you have the same options to go in and select different columns on all the different lists if you want to do that. We have something up here we call calendar integration. This will open a calendar subscription. If for some reason you would like to have all the club's tournaments in your phone or your computer or your iPad in what's called a calendar subscription, you can click on that, and it will be added to your calendar subscription. You cannot do anything in there. The tournaments will just automatically appear or disappear once they've been created or deleted into the system. You can have a few different reports on the top level of competitions. You can make a whole stats. Once you play the whole season, you may want to see for the tournaments what kind of holes are playing hardest or worst, and so forth. And you can get a total list of all your online transactions for all the tournaments in the system. And this is especially good if you have payment, of course, integrated with Borgen, and you have the men's sections and the ladies sections and the senior section, and they all are using the system. You can then extract the transaction list and see where should the money from each tournament, how many are there, and where should they go to, and so forth. And then the most important one is the Create New button. This creates the new tournament. And when I click this, it will open a dialog. There's a name for the tournament, Iceland 2020. There's a start date and an end date. And everyday normal tournaments that are one round on the same day, they have the same start date and the same end date. Only the tournaments that have 2 or 3 rounds will have different start and end dates. And maybe you have also some match play competitions that are running the whole year, where maybe they start in, when does the season start? In May? So 1st of May, there's a match play competition, and you can sign up, and it doesn't end until October or November. And they have to play, by the end of May, they have to finish round 1. By the end of June, they have to finish round 2. by the end of July, they have to finish round 3 and so forth. That's the only time you have an end date that is longer than just a few days. But other than that, you keep your start date and your end date as close to as possible. The type of tournament is the most important thing that we set when we create a tournament. Once we've chosen this type and we saved the tournament, we cannot change it. So if we make a mistake, I'm supposed to set up a Stableford stroke play competition, and I choose match play, and I save it, then I have to create it over again. We cannot change this type. So the only thing we really have to think about when we create the tournament is the type. And stroke play is what's used in 98% of all tournaments. It's Stableford, it's pro-ams, it's everything that where you play some type of stroke play. So all the underlying, what do you call them, types of play are most likely always stroke play, unless there are actually match play with brackets. And the last one that's also an option is what we call team match play, which is a Ryder Cup format. And we just put Ryder Cup. They could be anything else, but Ryder Cup is the most known tournament. So it will have different rounds. It can have just one round, but it will normally have 2 or 3 rounds where you have maybe a foursome with 10 players playing against each other, a 4-ball, and then singles at the end. So completely an option to set it up in the exact same way as the Ryder Cup or Jack Dalglish or whatever they're called, all those tournament, the President's Cup. So we just put Ryder Cup because it's the most known, and especially here in Europe. There is an option to choose no start lists, and I will come back to that later. This means that you can create a tournament where you do not have to worry about when they play. You just sign up, or the players just sign up, and then when you open the scoring, they can all enter their scores. And there's no one that's creating any tee times or anything like that. I will come back to that later because it's a little bit important for your everyday, day-to-day tournaments at the moment. So I'll come back to that. And there's an option to hide the tournaments. And this can be a good thing to do while you're training yourself. When you create training tournaments, if you hide this, it will not be on the public calendar. You will not be able to see any live scoring on it either. So if you are testing what you can see in the live scoring part, the leaderboards and all that, you will need to unhide it in your test area. But while you set everything up, maybe even just your everyday tournaments every weekend and so forth, before you're done with the setup, it may be a good idea just to hide it. And when you're completely done with the setup, you unhide it again. So it's just an option to do that while we're here. We have just a few templates to help you along the way with the different types. And if it's a stroke play competition, a normal club tournament in Denmark is often Stableford. Maybe the one class plays stroke play and the rest plays Stableford. So I would choose single competition, 3 classes. I'll have an A, B, and a C class, and I can add classes later. It's just a help to get started. And if you have a team competition like a Pro-Am, you can get help setting up a team competition as well. But everything can be changed, even though you chosen a template. It doesn't matter. It just gives you a starting point to do that. And if you have one tournament, you play the same format 20 times a year. You set up one tournament. We set it up completely, and you're happy with how it's working and everything. Then you can copy that from week to week to week. So you don't have to do the setup 20 times. You just set it up once, copy it to next week, change the name and date, and it's ready for the week after. We use that for all the men's sections, the ladies sections and all that. They normally play the same week after week after week, and then maybe once every 6 months they play something differently. So they use the copy function a lot in setting up tournaments. So now once I click save, I'm locked in the stroke play. So if it should have been a match play, then I have to do it all over. What I get now is this complete overview of a tournament. Everything in here is how we run a tournament. And there's just 4 areas and a report section, and I will go through all 4 of them today. And the more you play with them yourself, the easier they get to understand. There's one very important thing in the setup. The conditions of play. Everything on the left side is what and how you play the tournaments. This is what has to be set up for you to run a tournament. Everything on the right side, the one we call other settings, is just nice to have. It's if you want online sign up, if you want order of marriage connected, if you want blockings into the tea time booking, all that is just nice to have. It doesn't have to be set up, but the left side is what's really important. So I'll just go through everything from top to bottom and explain what the different things does. And I'm certain you won't remember much of it, but as soon as you've done 1 or 2 tournaments, it makes really good sense. And if you always just start from the top basics, and then you work your way down, and then you go over here and go through, do I need this, do I need this, do I need this? Then I'd say if you've done 2 or 3 tournaments, it takes about 5 minutes to set up a complete tournament. So unless you have a really complicated tournament, then it takes about 5 minutes to set up a tournament from scratch. When I talk, it takes about an hour, but I'll try to do it in 45. So the first one, in basic, I can change the name, I can change the date, I can add a calendar event, and this calendar event goes over to GolfBox. Remember, there's a calendar area in GolfBox. I can integrate that, and it will just give me a calendar. There's not much I can do there. I can just put in a time. There's a tournament from 8 till 7, and I'll just put in, remember to sign up. If you're not using the calendar function in GolfBox, don't worry about it. There is a scoring mode, and this one is whether or not you want the players to enter scores themselves on their smartphones. We do not use apps. We use a link to a website because we believe that the apps it's too complicated for us to build, and it's also going away in some sense that it's easier to build something that is on a web page that all mobile phones can use. Now we have only 2 major systems, iOS and Android, but there are someone that are unhappy with both, and they're trying to build a 3rd, maybe a 4th system. And if we have to build apps for all these systems, it will just cost too much money. So we built it like a website, and it works really, really well. It's really easy for the players to use. It takes about 3 to 5 seconds when you walk from the tee to the green, other way around, from the green to the tee. It takes about 5 seconds to enter 4 scores from your flight. You just put in 5, 5, 5, 5, and you're on to the next hole. And it's published, and it's live, and everyone that else is playing in the same tournament can follow the leaderboard. So it's a really good function, and it's a function I highly recommend that you, for at least the ones where you have a lot of players and you want public, you want the leaderboards, you want the hype of the tournament. Teach them how to use it from the beginning. It's a brand new system. You can say, this is how we're going to do it. That's the advantage of getting a new system is brand new start. Now we do it like this. And don't be afraid to do it. Everyone can do this. Even not trying to offend anyone here, but even the younger generation knows how to do this. Well, the older generation does. So they know everything about the phones. So I'm not worried about them. The categories is something you choose. It can be anything you want to use as a filter for your schedule. All the different tournaments. So this could be a club tournament, but it could be depending. In my club, we have about 200 tournaments a year. We have maybe 18 club tournaments, and the rest are all done by the different clubs within the club. So the men's sections, the ladies sections, the seniors, the juniors, the elite, they all have about 30 to 40 tournaments a year. So we have quite a big list. And if I want to go through the whole schedule and I just want to see what's important for me is the men's sections and the club tournaments, well, then I can select those in my filter and just see those. So it's a good thing to, if you have a lot of different tournaments, to use categories. And you can add as many as you want. So it could be a club tournament, it could be an elite tournament, it could be a junior tournament at the same time. You just add different categories. There's something called main competition. We really don't use that a lot. It's mostly used for the EGA that has the European Championships. They have the 2-day stroke play before they go into a match play for the teams, and they combine these two different tournaments with main tournaments. But it's there. You I would say you probably never need it. Unless maybe you have a club championship where you have a qualification into the finals. In Denmark, I know a lot of our club championships are first 2 days of stroke play that they will get a stroke play winner, but the best will also qualify for the match play club championship. So you could combine the main tournaments with that. If you will get a lot of admins in your system, there's an option to use password protections for each tournament. And if you get different sections to use the tournament system, teach them how to use the passwords. So the men's sections should always use one password just for the men's section. So everyone in the men's sections that are helping out know it's men's 2020. That's the passwords for each tournament. The ladies is ladies 2020. Of course, if everyone knows the same password, it doesn't protect much, but it does protect so much that you have to put in a password to delete a tournament. So you cannot just do it by accident. And if you're a lady and you delete a men's tournament, it's because you're vicious. But if it could also just be the club tournaments where you put in passwords, so no one else except the club tournament organizers can use them. We can, should you put a password on there and you forget it, email Anna and he will learn how to remove the password for you. So and if he doesn't know how to do it, then he will get us to do it. So it's even though it's locked, we can unlock it. The single most important, not single most, but one of the most important things in the setup is the classes. How do we play in each tournament? And I chose the template that said 3 classes, so it has already created 3 classes for me, and it has divided them into handicaps of up to 15, and 15 to 36, and 36 to 54. And that's just to put something in there. That can of course be changed either manually, or we can have the system calculate the handicap in the different classes once everyone has signed up. A lot of, especially club tournaments with sponsors, they would like to have the same amount of people in each class. Some are very traditional, saying an A class is always from 0 to 12, and a B class is always from 12.1 to 24, and so forth. But a lot of sponsors would like to say, well, I have 5 prizes for each class. I think there should be 20 or 30 competing in each class. So we have the option to say same handicap sizes for each class. And when we choose that, we set the maximum handicap in the A class. So the A class is from +8 to 54, and then I choose this. And it will look like all the classes are the same. When the players sign up, they will all go into the A class, and when the sign up is closed, the admins will then go in and calculate what are the handicaps for each class, and they will put the players out into to each class. And it works quite well, so only if you have 10 players with the same handicap, of course it can be right in the middle of where we divide it, and there will be a difference, but otherwise than that, it's really, really good at putting the 20, 20, 20 if it's possible to do that. The player parameters in a class is the more you choose of this, you can think of this as a limiter of who can play the golf tournament. So the more options you put in here, the harder it is to get into the tournament. So if I have handicap, age, and gender, it's somewhat easy because there's just 3 parameters I have to be in. If I put handicap by gender, it will be 2 different handicaps for men and women. If I put in age by gender, I can have 2 different age for men and women. And if I put in handicap status, we can also say, right now we have active and inactive handicaps, but it could be next week, they're called active, frozen, something else. I think there will be 4 types of handicap from next week. They may not show right away here, but you will have the option of saying, I want everyone can play, but only the active players can be on the leaderboard. So the guys with the frozen handicaps is because they don't have enough scores or something. I'm not actually sure why they will be frozen, but the handicap committee can freeze a handicap in the World Handicap System. They can play in the tournament because we want them to have scores so they can unfreeze the handicap at some point, but they will only be on the result list. And today, this is the EGA handicap. I don't know what you call it in Iceland. So the EGA handicap in Denmark is the ones that has played more than 4 rounds every year, and the handicap in Denmark is the ones that has less than 4 rounds a year. So for tournaments, the clubs are trying to make everyone happy. So unless they're really big prizes, they say everyone can compete in that with the handicap status. But if they're big prizes, they may not want to take the guys with who hasn't reported any scores, that doesn't have an active handicap, because who knows what they're doing if they're playing 20 rounds and playing really, really good golf, and maybe the handicap is a lot better than they're showing. So only in those cases they make a difference. We have player status as well, and those refer to whether you're an amateur, a PGA, or a non-amateur. I cannot remember if non-amateur will actually disappear with the new World Handicap System, but I think it will. So you will just have an amateur and a PGA. And this is mostly used if you run pro-ams, that you have maybe a pro class and an amateur class and a team class that has all of them. But you can also differentiate that. You may have tournaments where you know there will be full, so you can set a max number of players. You can either do that on each class, or you can do it as an overall to the tournament. If we do overall, then you put in, maybe there's 112 players, and we can say it's either lowest handicap, or in club tournaments, at least in Denmark, it's always first come, first served. The guys who signs up first gets into the tournament, except for the club championship, where if we don't have so many, so everyone gets into the club championship. But some clubs have so many playing in the club championship that they say only the 50 with the lowest handicap will be able to participate. And then there's some exemption category. That's not something that you'll be using either. So you'll be using the first 2 up here, most likely this one. And as I said, if we don't click the overall, we can do it on each class as well. This one can be a little bit tricky to use on each class, because you have to, especially if you're using the same size handicap classes, because you don't know the classes before, you don't know the number before you calculate it the same size. So I would always use overall when I use the same size handicap. There's also something called membership and club groups. I will get back to that. That's something in the setting area up here that I will get back to. But you can make different club groups where you can say maybe it's just people in this invoice group that can play in this tournament. Maybe you have a VIP invoice group and they can only participate in this, and everyone else will not be able to sign up. There's no team parameters because I didn't add any team classes. I can always, in a single tournament, I can always go in and say, I would like to add more classes. It can be either a player class or a team class. So if for some reason, let's say this is a club tournament and the sponsor comes in and say, couldn't we also make a team competition? We don't need to know who the teams is. We'll create them behind the scenes, but we want a team class as well. And afterwards, we'll tell them what team they're on. So it's a blind body team competition. Then we can always go in and create a team class and add that to the tournaments. And there will be similar options. Let me just add one. There will be similar options to a team class than there is to a handicap. So I can have a parameter called team handicap, or team size, or team roles. And normally what's used for a team is just the team size. It could be 2 and 2 if it's a foursome or 4-ball. It could be 4 and 4 if it's a pro-am. It could be 3 and 4 if we don't know if we can fill all teams. If we play a scramble, maybe it's 3 and 4. It's not fair for the guys who are 3, but it's an option. And we can also do handicaps for the teams. And remember, if you do use handicap for the teams, it's the total amount of handicaps for the players. So that's why it's also putting in 199. So if you have 36 as a player max up here for the team, then 4 times 36 should be the team max. Just to give you an idea of how they speak together. And then the last part, specify roles, is when we make things complicated. Now it can get really complicated because I can say, well, there has to be at least 2 men and 2 women on the team, and if there's not 2 men and 2 women, it will go on the error list. There has to be 3 amateurs and 1 pro, and if that doesn't match, they will go on the error list. So we can set it up to be complicated if we want to. If we want to delete a class, then we just click on the class name and click delete. Once we created start lists, we cannot delete classes because then they may be used in the start lists, and then we're trying to protect the system. You will have to delete a start list before you can delete a class. The last part over here, we default the age setting for a tournament to the end of the year always. So every if it's a junior tournament, we look at the date, what are the age at the end of the year for all tournaments. If you want the date if you have age classes in a tournament, you have from 50 to 55, from 56 to 60 and so forth. And if you want that to be the playing date, you simply just change it to the playing date. Otherwise, it will always use what are the age at the end of the year. This is what's normally used. I don't know if it's the same here in Iceland, but that's what's normally used by the unions in all their age category tournaments. Is whatever age they are at the end of the year, that's the class they play in. Then we have the same size handicap, and I will show you how it works because right now we have all the same. So once we save this, we go back to it once we have some people signed up. We have one saying player can play in more than one class. This one only counts towards players, and this can be if you have some tournaments where you have a stroke play competition and a stableford competition, and you allow some of the players just to play in the stableford or to play in the stroke play, but some may want to play in both of the classes. Then you can say the player can play in more than one class, and when they do that, if the classes are set up the same, when they sign up online, they will be asked, which classes would you like to participate in? And if they want to participate in stroke play and stableford, they select that, and they will be signed up for both classes. It's not possible for teams to do the same. Teams can only play in one class, but we do not need it if it's a pro-am, because there's one team class in a pro-am and then maybe 2 or 3 player classes. But maybe it's A, B, and C and a pro class. Or maybe it's just amateur, pro, and a team. Then we don't need it. So it's only for tournaments where players can play in a stroke play and a stableford competition at the same time. And you want the different leaderboards. Because you can have a stroke play competition and you can get a stableford result without having 2 leaderboards. That's also an option. So it's just where we want 2 leaderboards that we use this here. we have something called we lock automatic recalculation. That means once we have the same handicap classes and are calculated the handicap classes, we can lock so it doesn't do any recalculation if we add 10 more players. Then they will simply go into the class where they belong, but it doesn't change the number of players in the different classes. This option here, all entries are initially pending, is something that are mostly used by, it's mostly used by RNA. All their amateur championship, you don't know whether you are actually allowed to play in that until the end of sign up, where they go through all the entrants and they have specific, some you have to have won a championship of your country to be able to play in and so forth. And they will manually go in and maybe even for 300 players, they will manually go in and allow each player to play in this tournament. And they use this to do that. And then a very good option, if you have a max number of competitors in a tournament, let's say we have 50 competitors. Once we go to number 51, if we do not check this, they will all be signed up and they will all get a message saying, once the sign up is finished, the tournament committee will create the field, and there will be a player list and a reserve list, and you do not know where you are on, what list you are on, if you do not check this. You use this function when you have the standard function where you don't get put on a reserve list. If you know at the end of sign up you'll have 5 or 10 sponsors that will enter the tournament, and you do not have any clue who they are until after the end of sign up, then you do not make an automatic reserve list, because you will want everyone to know that they cannot know if they're on the reserve list, because you may want to pick and choose as a tournament organizer. It's your who gets in the tournament. Okay, he cheated last week, so we'll take him out and put the sponsor in. And as long as they don't know whether they're on the reserve list or not, they will be told once you've moved everyone around, and maybe you have some wild cards that needs to go in a tournament. But if you never change the order of the who gets into the tournament, first come first, then you use this, because then number 51 will be told you're on the reserve list. The club will, the organizers will tell you if that changes. But once you start taking people from the reserve list and moving other ones out, don't use this. So it's a good one to have, but it's also one you have to think about if you cheat after and you use first come first serve. If you use handicap for the waiting list, doesn't matter, because then everyone, once you choose the field, then everyone will be on the reserve list if they have a too high handicap. And there's actually even a little explanation for this. The rest you have to remember. The next part is courses, and you just have to click a search and it will go into your club and it will give you the course. And I don't know if you mentioned this in your little speech, that it's very important for all the clubs to get your courses built in GolfBox, because otherwise you cannot make any tournaments. Otherwise the players, once the season starts, cannot enter any scores. So the most important thing is to create the golf courses, then it's to set up your tee time booking, then it's to create your tournaments. But the courses is really, really important. So if you haven't done that, you do that when you go to work Monday. And you can choose all the courses that's been set up for the golf club, and you can go to other golf clubs in Iceland. Maybe you have a tour going to another club, and you can set up a tournament on their course. You can also go to a few other countries, all the countries that we have integration with. So if you have a group of players going to Denmark, then you can go into Denmark and choose the different Danish clubs, and you can create tournaments on their courses. You cannot make a blocking into their tee time system. You can just create the tournament there, and of course you have to talk to them about if you actually can play. But you can do it, if you go to Spain, you can create, we do not have any integration with Spain, but you can create manually courses in the system. So if your club is arranging trips to Spain or some warmer countries, you can use the create, and you can create whatever courses in the world we don't have integration to. You can create them and play the tournaments there. If you I don't know if you play simulator golf here in Iceland. I would if I was you, because it's a long season in the winter. So you can create simulator courses and have simulator tournaments as well. In Norway they do this a lot. They have simulator courses. They have simulator order merits. They even try to get simulator handicaps. But we had to say no there, because that's simply not possible. You cannot have two different handicaps. So they have to play with their own handicaps for the simulators as well. This one I'll take this one. And you can have multiple courses. If you play more than one round, maybe you have a big tournament that you play on. Now there's many courses here in Reykjavik, so I could have multiple courses I play on, multiple rounds, and it doesn't have to be the same club. If you play 3 different clubs, you can set all that up as well, 3 different rounds, and you can have the players play on different courses on each day. If you do have those kind of tournaments, make sure you run a test tournament before, and don't try to set it up just the week before, because it does, or the day before. It does take a little to make sure you get everything in the right order. So make sure you practice when you have those kind of tournaments. If a course has been changed, let's say in GolfBox this is actually getting the data directly from GolfBox. So let's say this course in 2 months will undergo some changes. I already created a tournament. This tournament is in 3 months. So in 2 months they will change 2 holes because of repairs, make them par 4s instead of par 5s. And they will make the changes in GolfBox. Then in my competition, it doesn't change automatically. It's the course I imported when I created the tournament. So knowing that they changed the course, I will have to go in and say update. The system does remind you if you created a tournament that is older than, I think, 90 days. So if you create your tournaments for the whole year and you get to the tournament in August and you created that in January, it will say your course is more than 90 days old, you should update it. Just to make sure we don't sit with some old data we don't know about, then you just go in and say update, and it will fetch the newest data from GolfBox and make sure the course is up to par. And this can even happen if you enter all the scores and you find out, oh my God, there's something wrong. The par is 70 on the scorecard, but in the GolfBox it's 72. So I forgot to update the card. I entered all the scores. You can go in and update the course, and it will recalculate all the scores to the new course and make everything right again. And creating a new course, name and USGA will soon be the only one here, but you can actually create a Congo course if you go and play in England. They will not go to WHS until November 2nd in over there, so the Congo system is in effect. When you play on a Congo course, you cannot send handicaps back because they calculate it differently. Everyone in England will have USGA ratings by now, so you will be able to get that should you go to some of the British Isles to play. Otherwise, it's a name, and you choose how many tees that you want to have in your tournament. You do not have to create the whole scorecard if you just play on the white course or the white tee. You just create the white tees, and you can edit a tee, delete them if you don't want them to clutter the scorecards. And the last part is you have to put in pars, you have to put in indexes. You do not have to put in length for any of the tees, and you do not have to put in a name or a time, but you can. And you only use length, time, name. Name you basically only use if you have maybe in Silkeborg we have 27 holes. It's south. west, and east. So our names for a course, even though the hole are 1 to 18, our name is S1, S2, S3, and E1, E2, E3, but it's still 1 to 18 in the course. And the time is if you want to have a pace of play on the scorecards. Then you put in timing for how long should it take to play this hole. You put in. You can do that in GolfBox and get it transferred to the tournament. But if you play on a course you create yourself, then you put it in manually. And the length you only also put in if you need to print a scorecard. And the T's, of course, you put in the index, the rating and slopes for the men and the women. And this one here, the button just tells you what should I choose by default when we create the T. So to help you with the setup, if you choose whatever most people will play from, yellow and red, then it will give the men's in the different classes yellow and red. And maybe the A is playing from whites, but then we just change it. We have something we call course starts, and in most of all the tournaments that's the same as a round. So you have a 3-round tournament, you have 3 course starts, but it can in certain tournaments also be the number of holes you play. Maybe you play a tournament, a team competition with 2 players where the first 6 holes is a foursome, the next 6 holes is a greensome, and the last 6 holes is a 4-ball. Then you still have 3 course starts, but it's the same round for all 18 holes. But in most tournaments, you will simply have one because it's a one round tournament, and it will give you the date that you put up on the basis, and then you put in a start time whenever you're playing. It gives you 9 o'clock as a default, but you just change that, and you can change the date, of course, as well. But there has to be one for us to play. And once we have a course start, we come to the most important part of the whole setup. Rounds and format is how many rounds do we play and what format do they play. And in a 1-round tournament, it's easy. In 2 rounds, we can start differentiating. Maybe in this tournament, the A class will play 2 rounds, but the B and the C class will just play 1. So there would be another course start down here, and I could put in round 2 for the A class. They'll play in the afternoon. Start early in the morning and then play the second round in the afternoon. If it's a 1-round tournament, setup is easy because it gives you everything. And then the important part under format is how do we play? What format do we play here? And we have different options. Stroke play is you cannot pick up the ball. Stableford, it will calculate your Stableford points for you. Modified Stableford is the tournament they used on the Pro Tour a while back, where you get 0 points for your net par. You get +2 for a birdie, +5 for a eagle, and 8 for a albatross or better, and -1 for a bogey, and -2 for a double bogey or worse. So not many are using it, but it's a fun one. The pros like to use it because they get to attack the pin. Eagles are better than birdies, and birdies are better than pars. So they get to attack when they play this kind. Then there's a format called bogey versus par. I have to admit, I have no idea what it is. And then the new one, I think that will be used a lot more with the new World Handicap system is the maximum score, because there's a new, a new term called net double bogey. So where we are so used to playing Stableford, and when we cannot get any more points, we pick up the ball. Net double bogey is exactly the same, but it's still stroke play, or it's stroke play instead of Stableford. So once you have 2 more than you have shots for, you pick up the ball and you just get a net double bogey, and you get a stroke play score. And this is also what's used calculating handicaps. If you don't have a score, it will give you a net double bogey. But you can have a double par as a score. That means that's your maximum score, is a double par. So if you have a 10 on a par 4, you'll get an 8. You can have X amount of scores over par. You decide whether you want to put in, the worst they can have is 3 over par, or you can have the net double bogey, or you can say it's always going to be a 10, or 9, even though they have 15. So different options. I think this one will be used a lot more than it used to. In this case, we will not do it for everyone, so I'll just remove this and we'll play Stableford and be in the C class. And actually, they won't play maximum stroke. They will play stroke play, and they will play Stableford, and they will play maximum score, just to have some fun. This now determines what we play, and which holes we play, and which tee we play from. So maybe they don't all play from the same tee. The A class plays from the yellow and the blue, and they play from red, and yellow and yellow. So you can, on each class, differentiate all of this. And even though we now decided whoever goes in what class they play from this from as a standard, then you can, after we created a start list, go in and choose players to play from a different tee than the standard. So you can do that as well. So let's say in the B class there's a player who is allowed to play from the red tees. Then you simply, after you created the start list, he will be default on the yellow, but you can go in and change him to the red. And of course his strokes will then just change accordingly. An important one is this tournament handicap qualifying. If it's not, no scores will be sent to the central database. And if it's qualifying, the scores will be sent to the central database. Actually, maybe the scores will be sent, but with a mark saying it's a non-qualifying score. And then, do we play with a reduction of handicap? If it's a scratch tournament you play, it's always 0. And if it's a handicap tournament, it's normally always 100, but you can play with a reduction. 87.5 is 7/8 of your handicap. Otherwise, it's just 100. If you play a tournament where, let's say, you want your max handicap. Can you remember in the setup we put in 54 as our max handicap, but we really don't want anyone to have handicaps higher than 36. So they may have 54 or 50 or 48, but they play from 36. So in my last class, because that's where the high handicappers will be, I would say that there's a handicap limit that everyone will play from handicap 36, even though they're higher than that. So it's normally, in Denmark, it's normally used for pro-ams where they say everyone can participate, but we don't want them to have more than 28 in handicap. Get strokes from 28. There is some advanced options, as they're also called. Use advanced player stroke allowance. This way you can go in, and for each player you can go in and make a lot of deviations. So in the A class you can go in and say, on age groups you can say, well, age is from, in the A class, up to 50. They play from the white tees. From 50 and above, they play from the yellow tees. So even though we normally just have one tee, you can go in and differentiate. It is an advanced session setup, so not a lot is using it, but it is used more and more because of people are recognizing that it's more fun to play golf from the right tees. And you all heard the term "played forward." It is sometimes just more fun to play from the tee that your ability is. And your handicap may be 5, but you cannot hit it 200 meters anymore. You're just very good in the short play. Well, then playing from the white tees will always give you a bad score. So with the handicap, stroke, and everything, you can compete against each other. You just have less strokes. And you can go in and make a lot of different setups with this. You can allow a free choice of tee. That means when I sign up, it doesn't matter what class I'm in, I'm asked what tee do I want to play from. And again, if you play with this in mind, that it's more fun to play from the right tee. Your strokes will be deducted accordingly. I can sign up. I might be in the A class, but I play from the red tees. I will just get 2 strokes, or maybe I'll get less. But you can allow them to choose whatever they want. And then we can even be more advanced and use advanced tees as well. Even more complicated, you can go in and say there's a default, and now we can go in again and differentiate on gender and on age or on handicap and everything. This one is mostly used in a pro-am where the standard for the team is yellow, but the pros play from white. So if you do make pro-ams, then you do use the advanced tee to tell the system that the PGA pros play from the white tees. Let's get rid of that. It's too complicated. Too complicated. Yes. And I don't know if you noticed, but once I've started working down through the different boxes, once I've been into a box, it opens up. So you can always see if you haven't been into a box, it's not open. So you don't get to see what you've chosen because you haven't been there. So it helps you a little bit saying, how far am I working with this tournament? Decisions is how do I calculate scores that are even when the system is done. And the normal one, the most recommended one, is the mathematical one where you say, well, it's a simple card count back, as it's called. Mathematical, you start from, if you have 36 holes, you start, what are the scores after 36 holes? What are the scores after 18? And if they're tied after 18, what are the scores after 9? If they're still tied, or last 9. And if they're still tied after last, then we go to the last 6, last 3, and then the last hole. And it's always the course last, or the course holes. So if they play a shotgun where they start all different, it's still the course that is counting. It's not the player's round. If he starts on 16, his last hole is still 18, once all 18 holes has gone in. And there are other options you can choose in here. You can choose lowest handicap, lowest playing handicap, lowest handicap. In my opinion, those are obsolete once we start using handicaps, course rating, slope. Once we start competing with the different handicaps, we shouldn't really be using lowest handicap or the plain handicap. It's my personal opinion. It's not one of GolfBox. It's my personal opinion. That does not really matter when we have the whole scores. Then it's simply because in the old days when you didn't do an electronic system, it was just so much easier just to look at all the cards who had the lowest handicap. And in my opinion, that is rarely used or should rarely be used anymore. We have one called earliest start time. If you have multiple rounds, I don't know if you know in the pro tournaments, but the guy who comes in first goes out last the day after on Saturday and Sunday. So this is an option as well to choose if you have multiple rounds. If you ever want to use mathematical by index, there's a help page that tells you what the indexes are, because it's not just it's a little bit complicated, and it's like 18 and 1 and 17 and 2 and stuff like that. It's something they use in Austria, and I don't know why. And then what I normally suggest is use the mathematical and then lottery. If someone is still tied after the lottery, then the coin is like this. You can show tied positions. If you want to see each position after the mathematical breakdown, and it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then you do not show tied positions. But if you want to show who's T2, who's T5, who's T10, it will place them in the order of the mathematical decision. So the guy who was best on the last 9, well, he will be on top of T2. So it will always put them in the same exact position as if we didn't have it, but it will just, and for the players, it's they like it when they say, well, I wasn't number 5, I was T2. So it's something that's good. You can also put in use playoffs for the tied first place In a club tournament, it's normally for the club championships that you use that. And currently, it will just show you that there is a playoff. It's not possible to enter scores for a playoff yet. It's nice to have if you do actually have them. Now, this is for all classes, and you can also go in and differentiate it if you want something different from the different classes. So you can go in and say, in this one I want something, and in this one I want something else. Normally, it's the same for all classes. If you have multiple rounds, it's also possible to set up a cut, and you have all the different cut options as the pros have. But you of course have to have more than one round to be able to set that up. And that can also differentiate from classes to classes. So in a club championship, there can be maybe in the best class can be 20 that makes the cut, and the classes that you don't have so many participants in, maybe it's just 3 that makes the cut, maybe it's just 5 that makes the cut. So that can be set up as well. That was everything on the conditions of play. The other settings is where we do everything that has nothing to do at all with how we play the golf. But we still start from the top, and if we use online sign up, this is where we tell the system when do we open the sign up, when do we close it, is there any questions we would like to ask them, is there any fees, is there any anything like that. So the first one, the entry window, is when does the tournament open the sign up and when does it close. And I think I have it on the 22nd, so I better say it closes at 12:30. When was lunch? 12:15. Confirmation window is only used, it's mostly used for the pro tournaments where they, in like for instance the Nordic League, the players will sign up for 40 tournaments at the beginning of the year. And then the organizers will have a confirmation window where they actually say that they're coming or not. So they may have 200 pros signing up. They know half of them are not coming. So they have a confirmation window. It's rarely used for normal tournaments. Uh-oh. I made a mistake. We will play at... We'll play at 4. Does it get dark at 4? I'll play dark golf. So you cannot have the sign up. I just wanted to show you that. You cannot have the sign up after a tournament has started. So you have to start the tournament at the time after your sign up is closing. The fee area is where you put in a fee. When it says base amount, this is a fee everyone will get. So if I put in 1,000, everyone that signs up to this tournament will get a fee of 1,000. If we want to differentiate on players, could be juniors and seniors, we have to use what we call the standard fee, and I'll get back to that because that's something we set up in the settings area that I haven't looked into yet. So easy tournaments where everyone pays the same, you use the base amount. And if you have if you do the same down by the green fee, everyone will also get a green fee. So the standard fee is mostly used for green fee players. When you have tournaments with green fee players that has to pay extra, then we use the standard fee, because then we can say, well, the club members does not pay green fee. Club members are 0. Green fee players are 5,000 or whatever. So with green fee, you rarely use this and always use this. And with entry fee, it's normally always the same. Then we have an area we call requests, and that's just some requests that you can put on. A lot of clubs use the allow request for early or late start. That means when I sign up, I can say I would like to go out early or I would like to go out late. And when you create the start list, it will look into who asked for this, and it will put the early ones first and the late ones at the end. You can ask for a caddy, you can ask for golf carts, you can put in notes. And notes is just a free text field where I can say I don't want to play with Arnar because he always cheats. Or I want to play with Arnar because he's my good luck charm. And if you activate this, you will get funny questions. No doubt about it, because golfers have no shame. And then a really good feature in our system is the questions area. You can ask a lot of questions before the tournament. One of the questions could be, have you read the conditions for the conditions for the term of playing in our tournaments? Yes or no? Like all the amateur tournaments for RNA, they have to say, I've read the terms of conditions. So once they acknowledge this, they cannot come after and say, I did not know I had to be here 2 days before, because it says so in the terms of conditions. You have to be there and register. So that's something you can put in there. We have different question types. Yes and no is normally used for, would you like to participate in the dinner after? Yes or no? Dinner. Or it could be, actually, it could also be a list question, because maybe you have, what would you like to eat? And we say they have to answer this because we want to know who's coming for dinner. So they have to ask what they would like to eat, and then we say chicken. It's cheap, 1,000, and beef. It's a little more expensive, and the last part is very expensive. So once I sign up, and maybe also no dinner. So that way, when I sign up, I'll be asked to choose whether I'm coming for dinner or not and what I want to eat. This way you can easily hand out you get the report from after everyone signed up and give it to the kitchen. You'll have 21 with whale and 5 with beef and some with chicken, and maybe put in vegan as well or whatever you like. We have yes and no questions. Do you have, can be anything yes and no. We have free text. That means they can just put in whatever answer. Do you have any health issues that we need to know about? They can put in all what's wrong with them. What date are you arriving at the golf club? What time are you arriving at the golf club? Do you have a number of guests with you? And then you can put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The list is also often used for if you have a big tournament where they get a shirt for participating. What size are you in shirt? Small, medium, large, and so forth. Accept required, I'm not sure what it is. I think it's translated a little bit wrong. I have to figure out what it is. File upload, if you have a big amateur championship and there's some players attending which are not linked to the GolfBox system, then you can tell them you have to upload your handicap certificate as proof of your handicap, and then they can upload that when they sign up. So we'll just stick with the dinner question. You can have questions and prizes. If it's a team competition, it could be just for the team. It's a total prize and not for each player. And then an important one here is, do we have online sign up? Do we allow the players to sign up themselves? And if we do, then we get some options. We can restrict them by union. You can say, well, we don't want any Danes to come up and play in these tournaments. We just want the golf samband. Where is it? There. So we just want everyone from Iceland to sign up for this tournament. No one else can sign up. And if you don't choose anything, then everyone can sign up if they're here. There's something called customized manual entry. A manual entry is a player that is not in one of our unions that can sign up with the login, and you can decide what do they need to input when they sign up as a manual entry, and you can remove or add some of this. You can allow them to edit their entry after. Maybe they chose chicken and they found out before the sign up is over that they really want whale, so they can go back in and change the question. And you can allow them also to delete themselves before the sign up period is over. So for you to have less work, I would allow this, because then until the sign up period is over, everyone can sign up or delete themselves, and once the sign up period is done, it's only you who can do it. So for instance, if you have some option of saying, we do not pay back any money if you want to cancel after the last sign up date, well, then they can't delete themselves, they can't get an automatic refund. You can put in some custom text on successful entry. Way, you signed up, congratulations. Or if they're not eligible, the handicap is 58. They will get a message saying, sorry, your handicap is too high, or whatever you put in this text. You can send them an email confirmation on successful entry. And if you use something practice rounds, which you don't have as a standard in the system, then they can get a booking code for the ones that doesn't have a sign up. Yeah, that was a new one. And if you have online payments set up with Borgen, then we can enable that as well. We can use as an option or use as a requirement. And I would recommend as a requirement, because as an option, then they can choose whether or not to pay, and then you have to get the money afterwards or not. But I would choose as a requirement. You choose whatever agreement you have with Borgen set up in the system. We have to set up the agreement. So if you have a Borgen agreement, you send it to aðrar, and we will set it up in the system with some information that we need.
Excuse me, is it just with Borgen?
Just with Borgen. This may change at a later stage, but for now, just with Borgen. And the payment window is normally the same as the entry window. No money. The next area is called publishing, and publishing is has to do with the schedule and what they see when they click on a tournament, but it's also where we can unhide a tournament that we hidden, or if we want to hide it again later, we can go in and hide it. If it's a pro and amateur tournament, we can mark the amateurs with an A or whatever we want to put in there. Or we can also mark players under or over a certain age with a star or something like that. And we can mark, and this one is a good one, and open, and it's an important one for you to also think about every time you create a tournament. Open tournament means that it will be open in the GolfBox tournament search area as an open tournament. So if you have tournaments where you would like to say everyone can participate, you should mark it as open. A men's section just for the guys, the men at the club, is not an open tournament unless everyone is invited from all over Iceland. So if it's strictly for the men's, you do not mark it as an open tournament. You can put in some information about when the start list will be available. It's just information that will be on the list, and if it's a pro tournament, how much money would they win. You can put in public description. This is where you put in all kinds of information about the tournament, if there's prizes, if there's anything you can put in here. And they will see that when they come to the sign-up page. So this could be, you explain how many prizes there is, all kinds of stuff. You can add a logo to the tournament. The logo will be shown on slideshows and on reports. It's normally the club logo or a sponsor logo that you put on there. You can add sponsors, and it's a logo and a text, and it will have a special tab on the sign up page where you can list all the different sponsors. You can add information about the venue where we're playing, what club is it linked to, and what's the address, and if you have any driving instructions to get to the club, or if you have any agreements with hotels in the area that you would like to tell them about, then you can put that in as well. And the last part is an important one. It's called live scoring, and it's where we choose what can the players see in the live scoring part. Do we want them to see the start list? Do we want them to see the country flags or the country names? So you can click this on and off for all the different tournaments. Do we want to show who signed up for a tournament or not? You can click that off and no one can see who signed up. If you click this on, everyone will be able to see it. All kinds of different stuff you can click on and off. If you have something, if you run a company day, for instance, there's a really good feature here. If you run a company day, you use the player scoring, so they're all entering the scores, they're following the leaderboards, and they're having so much fun because the other team is losing. Then you can say, I do not want them to see the last 3 holes, because then no one knows. And instead of going in and hiding the leaderboard and everything, then if you do this, you have an idea who's played really well for 15 holes, but you still do not know who won because of the last 3 holes. So especially for company days or other tournaments where you have a prize ceremony and you don't want to have them see the winner, you can do that. There are some options down here. You can publish the leaderboard. If you want, you have a C class, but you don't want that to be public, you can delete it. Or not delete it, but unpublish it. And if we play now the tournaments that we set up is a net tournament. If we want to show an additional gross score, it will simply just create a new leaderboard just for Class A that shows the gross score as, in an additional leaderboard. And this one here, the status text, is really good if you have some information that you want to put on the leaderboard or on the slideshows in the clubhouse, because it will stand out for them. It could be there's a hole in one. It could also be there's a rain delay or thunder delay, and when do we start? When do we expect to start again? So all kinds of information that will be on the top of the leaderboard, and they can even be in different colors. So if it's a rain delay, negative, the box it's in, it will be red. If it's neutral, it will be yellow. And if it's positive, you made a hole in one, it's green. So it can be different colors as well. Good. And I can see I have to hurry up a little bit. Maybe 12:30 for lunch. Maybe. The next area is called contacts. And this is if you have a tournament organizer, entries manager, you can have all different kinds of roles set up. You maybe have a referee, maybe you have a coordinator or a custom role, maybe you have a sponsor manager or something, all kinds of contacts. You can select them up in the settings area. You can create the ones that you will reuse over and over and over. You can create them up there, and then you can just select them from here. Or you can make them custom or make them from new every time. If you have some tournament directors runs a lot of tournaments, create them up in the settings. And if it's just a very few tournaments, you can just do it here. But it can be whatever the one, and you just put in the name, the mobile number, email, and so forth. And you can choose whether or not they're public. So some of the information, some of the contact person, maybe the caterer is a contact person you put in there, but it's not public. You just have it for information for the tournament people on the day or something like that. And then maybe if it's a tournament director, he would like to know every time there's a new entry. So he will get a new mail every time someone signs up. And we've had tournaments directors saying, this is a good idea, let me do that. And then after 112 emails, he goes, maybe that's not a good idea. But we get to a point at the end of the tournament where there may be just 5 spots left. He may want to go back in and say that he wants to see it. We can attach an order merit to a tournament, and that of course means that we have to have created an order merit to be able to attach them. But you will do that here, and you can have multiple different order merits. You can have Stableford order merits. You can have stroke play order merits. You can have order merits where you give them money. You can have you can give them points. Where say the 10 best will get maybe 50 points for the winner, 40 points for number 9, so forth. So multiple different order merits you can attach to each tournament. And once we have attached these order merits, entered all the scores, and close the scoring, we can just transfer everything to the order merits, and we have order merits results. If you are an administrator with rights for blockings in the GolfBox system and rights for blocking in the tournament system, you're also allowed to do blockings. So if you have a normal tournament administrator that just have rights for the tournament system, they will not be able to do any blockings in the tee time booking. So they have to have to be the same in the two systems, and they have to have it in GolfBox to be able to do that. And we've done it in this way so no one accidentally blocks a tee time where they are not really allowed to do that. So this user actually has an option to make a blocking in the tee time. Once I do that, it will go in and look at what resources do I have in GolfBox and what can I make a blocking on. So I can make a blocking in this today. So let's say from 12. And now they will actually automatically have put in a blocking in the tee time booking. So that's why you need to put it on the tee time booking. Iceland. Wrong one. Which one? This one? Yeah. So now that it's blocked in there. And that's so no one can book a tee time where they're not supposed to. Good. The last one is called logins, and this is one you would use if you have tournaments where you have some users that you do not want to give rights for the whole tournament module, but just for this one tournament. And that can be an external tour guide that comes in and have a tournament at your course, or it can be a pro-am, or it can be a corporate day organizer that you would just you create the tournament for them, but you don't want them to see all your other tournaments or anything like that. So I'll go in and create a login. And you simply put in what is it? And you can tell them on each. You can even on this tournament give this guy who's only got rights for this one tournament what rights is he allowed to set up. Maybe you want to control the setup and the payments and the entries, and he's only allowed to play with the start list and the results and slideshows. So you can limit them, or you can let them do whatever they want, but they can only play with this one tournament. It's a very good feature if you have a lot of those where you are not really involved, but you would like them to use the tournament system without them getting any hands on any other tournaments. So that was the setup for everything, and I was wrong about the 45 minutes, and I'm sorry about that. But now we set up everything for the tournament, and as I said, once you've done it 2 or 3 times, you're not thinking so much about each, and of course you're not explaining about each and every single thing in the system. So it does not take very long to do that. And if I just go back to the competitions, I'm now able to just click on the blue triangle here, and I can copy this tournament, and I'll get the complete setup. It will never copy any players. It will never copy any start list or scores. It's just the setup it copies. New date, new name, and it's copied. The next thing that will happen is entries. How do we get people into the tournament? And there are 5 different ways a player can enter into a tournament. The first one I'll show you is the sign up, online sign up, and in this case where he also will pay. If I just go back to the setup, in the publishing area there is a link to the live scoring, and this is a page that is outside GolfBox, but also in the GolfBox area for the players at the bottom here is the same schedule the players will see in the page that I'm showing you. So in this setup here, you can see what tournaments are open for sign up, and the players can then just click on this one, and it will take their information they're already logged into GolfBox with, and they don't have to log in again. So it's what we call single sign-on. So they will be directly entering with their own information into this tournament, and everyone else that they want to sign up with. This is also how the public page for the tournament looks. The schedule, the same thing here with all the tournaments, and enter online. It will give you the information for each tournament, so all the description, and if we had put any logos for the sponsors, there would be another tab here that would say sponsors. You could view those. They can go in and see who's eligible. And in the beginning, when we made this, we had opened all these boxes here. So the page looks something like this, and we found out that that's not really informative. Instead, we're closing everything and just open the few stuff that is necessary, and then if the players really care, they can go in and look at more information. This leaderboard page, as we call it, or live scoring page, as we call it, it's a smart page. It will automatically go to tee times once we created a start list. And once we open up for the scoring, it will automatically go into the leaderboard. So if I'm on a schedule, once the tournament has started and I click on the tournament, it will automatically go into the different areas where we are in the tournament. And once we're done with the tournament, it will start at the leaderboard actually under the result. So it's a smart page that knows where we are in the system. When a player enters, click on entry to sign up. Now we are on our test system, and the online sign-up system just needs to have the motor cranking. On our live system, it doesn't have to start up because it's always active. On our test system, it's always a little slower. You will get all the different options of the countries that we log in. Iceland will be chosen as default, but if I'm coming from another place, I'll simply just switch to the union that I'm coming from. And they will have to use the login that they get from that is created for them with the username, IS dash the club name, a number, and the member number. They will have to use that until we decide something else, if we do. Some other countries will simply just have the member number, but most have it with the username and password, for the fact that you cannot just go in and sign someone else up. In a tournament with a payment attached, that doesn't happen. No one signs you up for fun and pays for you. But in tournaments where there's no payments, then you can have someone that thinks they're funny and just enters a number for someone. So this is why we always suggest to have the username and password. And now it will fetch my data, and on my test database right now I don't have an email address, so it will ask me, please fill out the email address. And if I don't have a mobile number, it will also ask me for the mobile number. But those are the only information it will ask me for if we don't have it in GolfBox. If we have it in GolfBox, it will automatically take that. Now, then I come to, I ask for the request early, late tea time. I would like to go out early. And then what would I like to eat? I'll answer, I'll definitely have whale. And I can say, counting. So, and if you put that free text field in there, you will get some funny comments. There's no doubt about it. You'll get a summary of what the prices are, the entry fees, the questions, and a total. And then if we have payment, if we don't have payment, it will just say enter. And you entered into the tournament, and you'll make sure you get the payments when they come to the tournament. But with this, it will now open the, first it will give me some information about what are the terms of my payment and refund and all that. You should have that in there. And then I'll say pay now, and it will open the Borgen test site. And while I do that, I'll just steal the test number here. It will tell you what you're buying, who you are, and what your card number is. You have to put that in. And you say pay. I think normally it's a little faster than that, I think, but I don't know. And it will tell you paid for everything, back to store. And now you get, well, you had a receipt before, you can also get a receipt here in GolfBox, print it, or say okay. And now you signed up for the tournament, and you paid for the tournament. And we're done. So that's the first option. That's the most used option, is the player sign up. If you have some company days, maybe you use an Excel import function instead, because that's easier. If you have a company saying, I have 100 players coming from all over the place, you tell them to get their member numbers, and then they make an Excel sheet that you send to them. It's a template that we download from the system, and then you enter that way. I think now it will be in so that's because I told the system that I want an email when I sign up for the tournament, and I have no idea what it says. And then the receipt from buying the signing up for the tournament as well. Now it's Danish because I signed up with my Danish user, but it will be in Icelandic for your players, of course. So under the entries tab, new entries, we have the 4 other ways to sign up for entries. We have quick entry, and that's the one you use when they come into the clubhouse and say, can we sign up, please? And then you just put in the number. It's on the test system, I don't remember. Because it's your own club, you do not need the club number in front, but if you're signing up a player from another club, you need the club number and the member number. It will get the information and the handicaps and everyone, and you can put them into to what class that you play in. Now, because we haven't calculated the handicap yet, we put everyone into the A class. You can also search by name. Maybe. This always takes a little longer because there are many, or there could be many players. And we'll take him. And there's one thing that you cannot do yet, but will be able to do within a couple of weeks, and that's search for a national ID. In this field here, you will be able to, I think within the next 2 weeks, just to put in a national ID as well. And if they're green, that means that they are eligible to participate in the tournament. If they're yellow, that means that they can almost be in the tournament, but they're not quite following all the rules. And if they're red, that means that there's something wrong with them. If I have a lot of people I want to sign up with quick sign up, sometimes you may just want to apply. It doesn't close the window and you can just add more. Otherwise you just hit save, and now you added those 2 players as well. You have the option of manual input. That's your Chinese players, your American players, your anyone that doesn't have a GolfBox database connection. Donald Duck. There has to be a birth date. It cannot be today, but it can be yesterday. Male, female, what nationality, if it's a company, what union. All of them are not really important for the manual input. Club name, handicap is important. Handicap status is for our setup in this tournament, it's not important. So whether or not you have those things, you put them in or not. Address information, if you want to send out email for them, if you want the scoring code for the live scoring and everything, make sure you put in an email as well. If you can answer questions for them, put in admin notes. This guy is coming on the flight, so he may be a little delayed, so he actually wants a late start, and you can answer the questions for him as well. Of course, with 20 questions, you do not want to use quick sign up because it will take you forever to answer all the questions. If you use questions in tournaments, you make the players sign up themselves. And you can put them in. They can be anonymous. They can be excluded from results. Maybe it's a sponsor you want to participate in the tournament, and they should be in the start list, but they should not be on the result list. So you can exclude them from the result list, and they will appear like the normal members, but on the leaderboard they will not appear. And it's a good function if the sponsor is a good player, because sometimes they end up winning their own prizes. We can import an Excel sheet, and when we click on that, I would say it's mostly used for company corporate days. We start by downloading the template, and then review the instructions. It will tell you what you need to fill out, and if you have someone from other countries coming, you can see what codes do we use for nationality, and if we have something coming from different unions, you can also see what codes we use for the union. So, for instance, here it's GSI, in Denmark it's DGU, in Sweden it's where is Sweden? I don't know. Somewhere, I can't see it. So we have all these different options we put in there. I did prepare an Excel sheet with a few names. It's important that you do not change any of the columns in the Excel sheet. You do not change any of the text in the first column. You do not need to put in a union or a member number if it's all manual entries. Let's say it's an American cruise coming with 25 golf players that you want to make a tournament for. You don't have their union number or member number, so you just leave that out. Otherwise, you fill it out. If it's people from all over the country here, you put it in GSI and the club number and member number. And it will automatically create everyone in the system. I don't want so many because I want to enter some scores. Let's just do that. That one. So once I have my template and I put in all the information, I'll then go to my computer and find where they're placed, and I will import it. And in the import function, it will verify that everything is correct, all the data that I put in is correct. And if I used member numbers, then we know they're correct. If they're green, they're perfect. If they're yellow, they can still be in the tournament. If they're red, there's vital information missing. Then we import those. And now we have 8 players in the tournament. And the last one is transfer players. If you already played a tournament, for instance, a club championship, stroke play over 36 holes, and in the match play tournament, the 12 best players or 16 best players will go into match play. You transfer from the stroke play tournament into the match play tournament, and you search, you find the tournament that you want to transfer from, and you select the class or everyone. Oh, there's just one here. If there was 16 and we have a result in a tournament, you will be able to seed the players automatically in the match play. So the best player, the guy who won the stroke play qualification, will be seeded 1, and the guy number 16 will be seeded 6, and they will meet each other in the first round. So I got that one. Yes. So those are the 5 different ways of entering players into the system. There's a lot of actions. Like this one is very important now. We have 8 players. I'd like to have one more. Let's see. An easy name, I know. Harper. See how many is called that. Uh-oh. Is that you? Okay. So now we're 9 in the tournament. So the ones, because we in the class setup set we want to calculate equal classes. Now we close the entries, and there's no more coming into the tournament. Then we go down to calculate same size classes, and it will say, "Are you sure?" You can do this more than one. So if you want to, you have 60 players in. You want to calculate just to have an idea. You calculate it, and once you have 90 in, you can do it again. So, but I would recommend not doing it until everyone has signed up. And lucky 3, 3, and 3, it has now calculated and changed the handicaps for each class. So now it's 8 to 6, 6 to 12, and 12.5 to 54. So it does that automatically with the calculation. A lot of other options. You can replace an entry. If you already made the start list, you have a team, for instance, or just you already made and published the start list, but you have a late cancellation, you would use the replace entry where you sign up the new player and withdraw the other one. So that's what that function is for. You can upload player photos, and at one point, if they start using player photos over in GolfBox, you can actually copy from GolfBox from all the players in the system. So I will just try to see if I may have a profile picture on mine. So I would get a picture. And this is fun for the tournaments where you know there's interaction on the leaderboards. If you use slideshows, especially match play tournaments with slideshows, it's really great to have pictures, because they will show on the slideshow. And in the leaderboard, you can click into the guy's scorecard and you can see his picture. Update entries is over a period of maybe a month you have signed up. So the guy who signed up on the very first day, his handicap may have changed many times over before the tournament played. So this one will go in and update all the players' handicap as a standard, but you can also have them update emails, mobile phones and everything if you want to do that. You will be asked when you create a start list, do you want to update everyone's handicap? And it's a good thing to do before you create the start list. And you will also be asked when you open the scoring, do you want to make sure you update, or do you want to update the players? Because if you create the start list on Thursday, you may actually have a lot of players who change their handicap till you play on Sunday. So when you open the scoring, you just want to make sure you update handicaps to get sure everything is correct again. There is an email SMS function in here. where you can select everyone. You can write all the reserve, tell them we're sorry you didn't make it into the list. You can follow the reserve list to see what number you are, blah, blah, blah. You can email different, just a class. You can also use text messages. There is a fee, so I would recommend not to do that, but you can do it. And sometimes if it's on the day of the tournament, it's better to use a text message because a lot of people will have emails on their phones, but they may not check it on a daily basis, or at least not when they're out in the golf club and there's a thunder delay that you want to inform them about. So that may be the few times that I would recommend using the SMS instead of email. But it is a simple system. You put in a message, you put in a subject, a message, and you can even send if you want to see how it looks before you send it out, you can send an example to yourself. You can do limited formatting in here, very limited, bold, italic, a few things, and a link. And you can choose what the sender name should be. So if you want to make it a little more personal, and if you want to make sure someone else is getting the reply, maybe you're sending it out for someone else, but you want to make sure that if they answer the email, he's the guy getting the answers. It could be from the kitchen. We're out of chicken. Do you want a dog instead, or something? And there's also something called send BCC mails. Sometimes the tournament organizer would like to see all the mails sent out. There's a very important thing to this. It is a BCC of every single mail sent out. So if there is 112 people in the tournament, the BCC will be sent out 112 times. So think about that before you do it. And you can always see who's getting the email and who's not. And they're not getting one because the email is not in the system. So you know you need to contact them in some other way if it's important. And you can even add other addresses to this mail if you want to do that. And if I hit send, it will send it out. It's not really a problem that I have the email addresses because it's a test system. It will just send it out to our closed environment. So I won't do that. Someone will have to clean up after me. You can export the whole list to players to Excel. Or down here we have a few other lists as well. We have the whole entry list. We have a very important one if you use payments. It's called account list. And this shows you who has paid and who hasn't paid. And if we're using online payments, all of them should be green. And you can go in and say, okay, so if someone actually comes into the clubhouse, gives you 1,000 ISK, you can go in and say, okay, he paid in cash. You can go in and mark it as paid. So they can pay in other ways as well. If someone, after the sign up is gone and someone would like to cancel, you can go in and delete them from here. And when you do that, it looks like there's not an option to do an automatic refund from Borgen, because otherwise it would ask you. And I will talk to them if there's something they have, because we have it in the Danish system. So it will actually ask me, do you want to make a refund if you have that right? But it looks like it's not an option in Borgen. So we'll have to ask them if it's something they will get at some point. Because this, I have to say, we haven't done much new with the payment system in Denmark for the last couple of years. But this one we added last year, and it helps the clubs so much that they don't have to go into the payment system to do a refund and then go back in here and mark that they actually had been refunded and everything. So it will definitely be a good thing if they make the system. But here you can see everything and see who hasn't paid.
Is there a time limit of deleting?
No.
So basically one can...
A player cannot delete himself if the sign-up has closed.
Yeah, okay.
So because I put in the option to say a player can delete himself, as long as the sign-up period is open, he can delete himself. But on cutoff date, it's only the admins who can delete them. We can go in and see who's in the different lists if we want to do that. We can print them out or anything. And because I have questions in this that I would like to send to the cook, I can go into the question list and I can export that into Excel or whatever, and I can send it to the or I can just tell the cook there's 2 whales and there's nothing else, mostly because I imported them and I didn't answer the questions. In the start list area, this tournament has a start list. We did also have the options of not making a start list. Then it will just tell you this tournament does not have start list. All you have to go and do is start the results. It will, in real life, it will actually make a start list behind the system where it puts you on. Each player will get a tee time at 000, 001, 0002. So they will get one with each a minute difference behind the scenes. But that's just something they had to do. So they will create a setup, and it will ask you again here, do you want to update the handicaps? And since I just imported everyone, we don't need to do that. But I would recommend doing it. You can do a running start or a shotgun start. And if you do a shotgun start, it will ask you what holes do you want to play on. I can remove some of the holes. And if you want a double start, you can add that as well. It is not possible to do 3 starts on a hole. You have to cheat the system somehow. If for some reason you want to have such a slow round, you need 3 rounds on a start. I'll just make a running start for this one. You can start on hole 1. You can add a hole if you want to start on hole 10 as well, or any other hole. You have to say how many minutes between the groups. You can add another starting time. The European Tour plays, they normally start at 7:30 in the morning and then a second start at 11:30. And the day after, they switch them around. So the guy who started at 11:30, he starts at 7:30. So you have the option to do that if you want to, if you have multiple rounds. And you can even switch everything around the order. So the guy who went out very last, he will be the very first one out, and so forth if you have multiple rounds. You decide how many is in each group. And whatever you choose here, if it doesn't add up, if I put in 4-ball, it will, and we're 9, it will not be able to make more than one 4-ball. It will never put one player out alone. So instead, it will probably make 3 3-balls, so maybe a 4-ball and 2 2-ball, 3, a 3-ball and 2-ball. So, but in this case, just to make it easy, I'll make a 3-ball. We have some different templates you can use if you want it completely random, but you want to prioritize the guys who actually said they want to play early or late. You choose the random one, prioritize start time. You can sort it by handicap. Then, of course, it won't be able to take into account whether they want to start early or late. If the guy with handicap 54 has requested an early tee time and we sort it on handicap, well, he will be at the end. That's just how it works. You can also not do the template and do it manually, saying I want to group it by class. That means the A class will go out unless I change the order. The A class will go out. Now the B class will go out first, then the A class, then the C class. So if I do it random without setting a class order, they will just mix it and not look at any of the classes. I can allow mixed groups. That means if it doesn't add up or if I have A, B, and C and there's not the same amount in each class, maybe somewhere you have a 3-ball for the A group, and when we go into the B, we'll borrow one to make it a 4-ball. So that's allow mixed group. Otherwise, there will be a difference between A and B. You can sort it in different ways, just like on the template. You can sort it by age or handicap or entry time. If you're using the Excel sheet, you have a corporate day, and they want to decide what the starting order should be. Tell them to put the Excel sheet in the exact order they want the players to play in. When you import the Excel sheet, they will come in the order of the Excel sheet, and you will use the entry time, and the start list will be in the exact same order as the Excel sheet. And then we can have some limitations. I don't want more than one from the same team or club or gender or country in the same group, and it will try as much as possible, because sometimes it doesn't add up. If there's 54 women and there's 20 men, well, we can't say there can only be one of each or two of each. So as much as it's possible, it will try to make it work. But I will do the randomly one, prioritize start time requests, and then I will save that. And then all I have to do is create the start list, and it will now build the whole start list. And if I wanted to change a tee from someone other than the standard, I go into the complete list here. I can see what teams or tees they're playing on, and I can go in and say, Anna, is having a good day. He wants to play from white. And now he plays from white. He gets his strokes from white. So that's how fast it changes in the system. And the last thing I can do here is I can publish the tee times. When I do that, it will be public on the schedule and in the tournament, and I can send an email out. And if we're using the live scoring code, live scoring on the mobiles, I can also send out a scoring code as well, because then it will be on the email. And whether you send it out now or you send it out later when you open the scoring, it's really up to how close, in my opinion anyway, is how close are you to the start day when you create the start list. If you create the start list on Wednesday and you play on Sunday, then maybe they forget all about the email they had on Wednesday where the code is. So then I would send out another one Sunday morning before they even get to the clubhouse, and tell them you have an email with the link on. And I can publish it now, or I can say, if you have a deadline that says, well, 12 o'clock on that day, the start list will be published. We already created everything. It's not until tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Then I can go in and say it's available from that, and it will automatically publish and send out the email at that time. But I will do it now. And it does take a few minutes for it to publish. So if you've done this and you go directly to the page here and look at tee times, it's not there. There is a few minutes, it's called cache, for it to update the system and to actually create the leaderboard. So don't worry if you click the publish and you go straight there and look. It will not be there. So in a few minutes, I know when I get the email that it's published, and then it will be available here. And this obviously happens a lot. You publish the tee times, and then the players see, oh my God, now I'm playing with... I didn't get to play with Anna. And say, and Martin is the big sponsor of the tournament, so we want him to play with Anna, of course, because he requested that. But then you always have the option of going into Edit Start List. And you can drag and drop players around in the start list. The drag and drop is available as long as you haven't opened the scoring. When you open the scoring, you can still move players around. It's a little harder to do. But before you open the scoring, it's simply a drag and drop now to move players around. And with 9 players, it's easy. With 120 players, it's a little harder. So sometimes you may want to move players out here, scroll down to the bottom where you want them to play, and then drag them back into the list. You can get some help if you want to see who do I want to move around. So you can put in some extra fields. Maybe you want to see the handicap. Maybe you want to see the start time wish. So if you noticed, I was actually first on the start list because I requested early start list. So maybe we should actually put Anna up in my flight instead. Like that. Because now, and the guy, Donald Duck, who wanted the late start list, is at the end. If we have a lot of starts and you want a starters gap somewhere in maybe after 2 hours, you put in a 10-minute starters gap to catch up with everything that can go wrong in a running start. Well, then you can add a gap saying this is the core start. So I'd like to adjust everyone from 16:10 with 10 minutes. And now it changed from 16:10 to 16:20. This is also really, really good to use if you do have a thunder delay and you know you will be starting 3 hours later. You have 5 flights out already, and everyone from 8 o'clock will have to be moved 3 hours. Well, then you simply go into the add and add the gap from 8 o'clock and add 3 hours, and the brand new start list will be made available. And you can even publish it again to send out new emails for everyone if you want to do that. Good. And that email before probably means that the tea times should be ready. Yeah. Just one thing with the start list. If you already made the start list, if you publish the start list, and if you move people around after you publish the start list by dragging and dropping, you don't need to publish everything again. Those 2 players, if you move 2 players around, they will automatically get a new email that their tea time has been moved to another place. So just a little function that's built in there. But if you move 40 players around, maybe you want to publish everything again. Under the last tab is the result tab, is where we enter the scores. There's 3 ways a score can be entered into the system. Everything we have to do will start by opening the scoring. If we use player live scoring, it will not be possible to enter any score before the scoring is open. If we use admin scoring, scoring has to be open, and if we use iPad scoring with volunteers, the scoring has to be opened. So that's the first thing you do when you come in, and it will again ask you, do you want to update your handicap? And again, if there's a long difference between the tea times and opening the scorings, I always recommend you to do that so you have the latest handicaps registered in the system. And then it will ask you, are you sure you want to open it? And it will say yes. Did I say no? When we open the scoring, we also get another option of sending the scoring codes to the players. We can reset the scoring. It will delete everything, and if you do that, you will not be able to, and we will not be able to get the scores back. So it will ask you, do you want to delete it? So you cannot do it by mistake. But sending the scoring codes again, they will get a new email just with the scoring code. If I just go to the email system, this is the email that they got from when we published the tea time booking in Icelandic. And they have the link for the live scoring. And it's the live scoring for the players has been developed for the mobile phones. So it will look a little bit funny when I open it here on the computer. If the scoring has not been opened and they click on this link, nothing will happen. They will tell them you cannot do anything yet. Now this is also a site that has to just start up, so it takes a little while. On the live system, it loads a lot faster. So if you're using this system, it is a system that is built for live scoring, and it does not have any approved functions or anything like that. It's still the tournament organizer's job to make sure that the scores are okay. And how you do that, whether it's it's up to the clubs. So the first thing it asks is are you Donald Duck? And if you say yes to that, enter scores, it will open the scorecard for the 3 players that you're playing with. And on the phone, it's a little smaller because it of course fits on the phone. And all they have to do when they walk from the green to the tee is click on the hole, enter the scores, and it will jump to the next player, jump to the next hole. They just keep doing that every time they go to a new hole. And they can go back, they can change the score if they want to do that. And because it's with the finger, it works really, really, really good. And at the same time, they can follow what's going on at the leaderboard. So if it's a corporate day, this is a great tool because there's also always a lot of bets going on at corporate days. So once they enter the scorecard here in the app, it's actually the leaderboard is updated instantly. On the public live scoring, there is a 1 to 2 minute delay for whenever a score is entered. And it's a long way to the test server. So now the scoring has already started, and I'm the only one of Frederick is in Class A. We can see the growth score, and we can see the B class. They haven't started yet, and we can see the they can change the language, and they can log off, of course. The link in the mail is a link including the code that they need. Sometimes, and it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes they get to have to enter this code manually. Or maybe you just have a list, you don't have any emails for the player, so you just have a list. You tell them to go into this web page, and you give them each flight a number. And then they have to enter it manually. But entering scores is quite quick. And I've used it a lot for when we've tested it. So it is really just 3 to 5 seconds walking from the green to the tee. And let's say something happens out there. The browser is saving the information. So should they use or lose internet connection? The only thing that's really important is that they have to have an internet connection when they start it up. If they don't have one when they start it up, obviously they can't get to the scoring page. But if they start the scoring and they go out in the forest and there's no internet, they can still enter the scores as long as they don't refresh the page. And once they get a connection, it will send all the missing scores back into the system. And let's say they run out of battery. Well, then these scores are saved, and when they come in, they hand in the scorecards to the scorer, and the admin can now enter the rest of the holes into the system because it is already there, ready for them to enter. So everything is saved instantly once they go back from the page. And for the admin to enter scores, it can be done on a keypad with a computer with a keypad on top. It's always best to have these keyboards with the extra pads over here, because for most it's just in the fingers where the numbers are, and it will jump automatically to each hole. It will calculate everything on the fly, and you just hit enter to save it, and then the score is in. On each scorecard, if you're using the scorecard module, there's a player number, and they get a player number when they sign up for the tournament. So the easiest is when you're sitting with the scorecard as an admin and want to enter the number, you look at the scorecard, it says, this is player number 1. And you simply just enter number 1, and you get the player up. But you can also search a name or anything else. And it's not a member number, it's the player number for the player in the tournament. And I'm playing pretty good today. There we go. You can also go into the complete list if you this is mostly used as some golfers are forgetful, if I put it nice, and then they go in and after the tournament and they go get the very thing they can remember is to go and get the beer, and then they go back out and they forget to hand in the scorecard. So the complete overview of the list of all the players, it's easy to spot who hasn't handed in the scorecard. Or if you're sitting there, I have no scorecards, what score is missing? Well, the guy who still have a tee time on there, his score is missing. Or if it says 16 holes, or if it says 14 holes, you know you got to find this guy. It has to say F for the scorecard to be filled out. There is one function I would recommend that you use if you use the player live scoring. When they come back in, and depending on how much you check the scorecards after, if you say this is a tournament where we completely trust whatever they do, we're not checking any scorecards, then everything is fine. But if you do a card check after they come in, then you should use this one here to log the external scores. That means he cannot go back into the phone and change a score. For some people are thinking it's fun, and some people will try to do that just because they're the fun guys. So this also means you check the scorecard. It's done. So now you can save it. And should some player be disqualified or did not show up or anything like that, Anna actually he had yoga to do, so he didn't show up. So he can see here's a no-show, or he can maybe he got injured during the round, so he withdrew, or he retired because he got injured. If he withdrew between rounds because of an injury, there's different status you can change them to, and disqualification. One is not handicap qualifying, one is handicap qualifying. And what that means is if it's a handicap qualifying disqualification, it's something that happened after you played 18 holes. Maybe you signed it wrong, but your score is still good enough accounting for handicap, but you got disqualified in the tournament. If you cheated and had 20 clubs with you all the way around, then you played under false pretense and your score is not handicap qualifying, or you knocked it around like Anna always do with his foot, then it's this one. If you have for some reason any tournaments that has so many rounds and maybe have a multiple cut, maybe there's a cut after day 1 and a cut after day 2, well then our system can only do the big cut one time, but then you can on all the other players go in and make a manual cut for after round 3. So maybe there's just 20 players or 5 players that needs to miss the second cut. Well, then you can go in and say they missed the cut. You can always edit a player if we find out, well, after the new world handicap system, we can actually not tell what if he played around and it hasn't been calculated electronically, we won't know what his new handicap is. But for the rest of the week, you can, with the EGA rules, say, well, Arna went out to play today, he made 40 points, his new handicap is. That changes Sunday. All that changes Sunday. It can only be calculated. So if the score is entered Saturday, before the tournament, he played on some other course, and he entered his score, well, he's still playing with the same handicap on that day, because there's no way no one can calculate what his new handicap is. Those are the new handicap rules. So, but you can change his name or country or anything like that directly from the scorecard. If you make a double something, sorry, Anna. If you make a double 10 or 11 or something like that, you hold the first number in and click the next number while you hold the first number in. Then it will automatically do both. Anna, that's not good. You need to practice more. So back to Jens, who played some of the holes. If you have any tournaments where you have volunteers maybe on every third hole to do the scores, there's a report up here, and I won't really have time to do any reports, but there's a report you can take. It's called a score sheet. It's built for the volunteers. That's easy to use, easy to write down the scores, and then go to the iPad to enter the scores. If you have a tournament where you have walking scores with the players, use the player function for the walking scores, because that's just the best one to do that. But this score sheet is for the a report for the volunteers, and then they need to use this tourmobile.golfbox.dk, because that is built for tablets. So if they sit out there on 3, 6, 9, then they take down the scores on paper and then they enter it into the iPads once the players leave. 39. So we're missing 3. And the last 2. if you play some kind of team event, you should always tell them to come with the scorecards as a team, because you can't see it here, but you will get all team players up in the same dialogue in the same window here, and you can enter all 4 scores, save it, and you have the whole team score. There's no problem of entering 1 score at a time. It's just easier if they come with 4 scorecards. So at the same time we're entering scores, this is important for when the tournament is over. When it says 100% complete, that means everyone has a score, and we can move on to closing the scores and sending the scores in for handicap adjustments. We can see we haven't really logged any because I was a little lazy. But if you use player live scoring, and if you have 100% scoring, that means everyone has entered their scores. If you have 0% locked, that means you haven't checked any cards. If you have 100% and 100%, that means you checked all the cards that they're okay and locked them. So having played the round, I can reset it because it was the wrong tournament I entered the scores in, or I can close the scoring. And once I close the scoring, I'm able to adjust the handicaps. That means sending them off to the WHS engine, or for the next week, sending them off to GolfBox for the normal calculations. And I'm also able to transfer to the order merits while you were doing something else. I quickly just created 3 order merits. It's a Stableford order merit, and they all 3 participate in the same order of merit. So I can go in and transfer them. They will get just their Stableford points. Even though some of them played stroke play, it will transfer their Stableford points into the order of merit. And have you made some mistake that you want to correct or anything, you can just go into the transfer again and untransfer everything, say reset. So you can always redo what you've done. And when you start playing with the system yourself, the only thing I have to warn you about is this one: adjust handicaps. That's the only thing that affects players afterwards. If you don't do that in your test, so that's fair, we can't do it yet because we haven't played. If you don't do that, you can do whatever you want in all your tests. If you use real players and you send out or publish the start list, make sure you just tell them. You may get an email about start list if you use your friends or whatever, your colleagues or something. But you can do nothing wrong except this one. So play with as much as you want. Try everything in the system. Nothing wrong with that. I will address 2 things that we cannot do yet. It's something that will come, and there's one thing I know you're all really worried about, and it's not something we have in the system and have ever had, but it's something we will have within the next 2 months. First thing is, in the entries, Anna didn't hear it, he didn't pay attention, but I told you that within the next few weeks you can use the to enter as well. And one that will be a little further away is the entering a tournament at the same time you book a tee time. But it's in the contract, as you said, so it will be done hopefully before, but at least by the end of April. How and how the system or the function will work, I cannot tell you because I haven't seen the solution yet. My guess it will be a function under here like blockings, or instead of blockings, it will say allow booking through tee times or something like that. It will be a little bit different than what they're used to, because it will be they book a tee time, and if there's a tournament in that space of the tee time, it will ask them, do you want to sign up for the tournament? So it would be, as I understood, you sign up for a tournament and then you can book a tee time. In our system, it will be reversed, most likely. It could be, it will be the other way around, but I think we will build it into the tee time booking, so you book a tee time, and it will ask you, there is a tournament here, do you want to sign up? And if you sign up, if you book a tee time at 8, that's the start you will have in a tournament. Once we build it, we will send out a guide for you to know exactly what to do to incorporate this into your tournaments and your tee time booking. Reports, I'll just quickly show you a report. There are lots of different reports, and they all are Word reports. And some will work after the different stages. Like there's no start list when we only made entries. There's only start list reports once we made the start list. There's option to print labels or print start list. The score sheet function for the volunteers. Scorecards. There's two different ways at the moment, and this may be something we'll create new other scorecards as along the way. There's a pro scorecard which generates 4 scorecards on an A4 with little information, just information to put in the score and the marker score. You can put scoring codes on the scorecards. There's no strokes on a pro scorecard, but we have also the amateur scorecards, which have 2 scorecards on an A4. So these are the scorecards for the tournaments. I'll just show you that. And if we put in timings for the course, the timings will also be available for like this one. So in the test system in Reykjavik, they actually put in timings for the course, so you'll be able to see when you're playing. You'll have all the information of the players, and including the player number, which is easy to use, and the marker can enter their scores down here. And other layouts may come along the way, but those are the 2 layouts at the moment for tournaments. And you can have all kinds of reports. As I said, it's a Word document, so you can also change them afterwards to make the font smaller and stuff like that. Good. I think we are at the... Yeah, so scores have been updated, and all the different classes has been updated. I actually have a picture in here, so you can see my picture. I can go into my complete scorecard, and I can see the trend, how I was doing and everything. It looks pretty good with all these reds and yellow ones. I think I'll save this one. Plus, I think I won, didn't I? Yeah, I even won. I'm lucky. So all this updates instantaneously. And the last thing I just want to show is if you have screens at your clubhouse where you maybe at the bar or somewhere, you want to use the slideshows for presenting. Maybe in the morning it's running the start list, and in the afternoon it's running the leaderboard when they come in, or if there's a crowd. So you can have different slideshows. They do require either a TV with a web browser or a computer hooked up to a TV. And you can have multiple different slideshows. So you can have the start list in there. You can have all kinds of things in there. If it's a match play, you can have just the one match, or you can have all the matches in there. It's just a leaderboard. You select the competition, so you can even, if you're running more than one competition at a time, you can have a slideshow that has multiple competitions in the same slideshow. You decide how many players for each slideshow you want to show. If you have a tournament with 220 participants and you're showing the complete leaderboard, even with 5 seconds, which is the smallest interval, it will take quite a while to get through everything. So with a large tournament, you may want to slide this to say just show the top 60 or something like that. You have a few different transition slides, and you can set the interval at whatever you want. So if you have a slide that is a picture of all your sponsors, then you may want to show that for 10 seconds, and the leaderboard is just 5 seconds for sliding. And you can again have multiple in here, and it's a link. So again, you send it to whatever TV that you want to show it on. If you have Google Chromecast, you can cast it to different TVs. Otherwise, you just hook up a TV to the or a PC to the TV. And then you want to run it in full screen, and I'm not sure how to do that. And sometimes Firefox is not the best one because it doesn't do a real full screen. So I would recommend for slideshows to use Chrome. And sometimes the TV, like this is not an HD projector, so it minimizes everything, but you can use minus and plus to make it fit the screen on the different TVs. And it's minimal what you have to do of this, especially if it's running in full screen, as it does in Chrome. But sometimes you do have to do a little adjustment to do that. Yes. You asked about, we will be getting Icelandic guides, but there's also some English guides in there, and there's also, if some of you know a little Danish, there's more Danish guides than English guides, so there's a lot of guides in the system, and you will get into them by clicking here, and you can change the language up here, and it's pretty empty at the moment.